and welcome to Steven University. Now, for those of you here for Chris's pitch part 2, that is coming, but a couple of days from now at the end of the week, we had to jump in with the new trailer, which of course they dropped the day before we record Chris's movie pitch.
So I think, it's like nobody cares.
I mean, if that's probably true. I mean, we are, let's be honest, two grown men on a bank holiday weekend ignoring our girlfriends to sit in a little room, boil away, to record a podcast about a trailer for a movie of a kids' TV show that we're going to put on the internet that will be listened to by dozens of people at most. We are the saddest people on the planet right now.
But we could not. We had to talk about the trailer. We'll talk about my pitch on my pitch episode. Like, it's so. The more I put it together, the more I'm like, man, this is not as good as Dad's.
I've had a fair bit of feedback on mine, so mine is it's certainly had it's got its issues.
Yes,
so.
but that's what scares me even more, because I'm like, fuck me, they were giving this feedback to, like, it's not gonna. And you thought about yours, like, yours was pretty watertight, whereas like the holes people are gonna punch in mine and the unpopular decisions I'm making, because fine. I think, like, I deliberately, like, you catered, like, you did it so, like, as a, we'll talk about it on the thing, but you did it so, like, as a fan, and so catered as a fan, and mine's a bit more, like, as a studio,
yes.
But that just means that, like, it's the fans we're talking to. You did the
I think if you can justify the thinking behind any decision, you're fine. But anyway, we'll come back to that. So if anyone wants to know what Chris would do, for those who don't know, if anyone wants to come back later in the week and listen to what Chris would do with a Steven Universe live-action movie, you can check that out. If you want to find out if you want
to hear Chris's second option, because what I would do is hire you. But, like, if that's not an option, this is that's what
that is extremely flattering. Yeah. That is very flattering. I'm terrible at taking compliments, but thank you. And honestly,
this is backup plan.
But it's funny because if you want to hear the pitch that Chris was referring to that I did last week, it's on our channel. And honestly, though, it's funny because in a weird way, I almost started last week's episode with what I've learned is that no one should do this. This movie shouldn't exist. No one should ever try to do it. It's so hard to make it work as a movie. But anyway, as a live action movie, that has to appeal to a wider audience as well as the fans. Anyway, let's get to the trailer. So, new Steven Universe movie trailer really came from an unexpected source, Toonami. So for those who don't know, Cartoon Network in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s had a block called Toonami, which was like a block of programming where this sort of like robot character, there was different characters that did it, but the one I remember was a robot character that would introduce basically Western voiced animes. So they take animes from Japan like Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing and all this other cool stuff. They'd get the dubs of it, the English language dubs, and then edit them so they didn't have as much gore or whatever, and then play them on kids' TV. And it was like, basically, it was just the cheapest possible content. There's just a swath of Japanese anime, and all you got to do is stick English voices on it. It was a very cheap and cost-effective way to fill a few hours of television. But it became very popular, and it's probably the reason, it's a big part of the Western popularity of anime, and I would say particularly shows like Dragon Ball Z. And it's certainly where I grew up watching it on Toonami. That's where I grew up watching it. So a few years ago, it long since ended, and a few years ago, Adult Swim, which is a completely different channel, although they are connected with Cartoon Network, obviously, they did as an April Fool's joke a Toonami like revival one week. Not 1 week, but April 1st, I assume, where they brought it back for a night, and then they just sort of kept it because I guess at a certain point they realized, hey. A lot of our audience remember these animes and Toonami specifically from their youth, so they've just kept doing it. And now obviously they're airing the full uncensored versions of them, I assume, because it's Adult Swim. But Adult Swim people are obviously big fans of Steven Universe, and they've embedded a trailer they have themselves actually made with permission from Cartoon Network, obviously, for the show, which is really amazing. I think that's really nice. And the intro to it is actually, I mean, there's not much to say about it really, but it is the robot whose name I always forget from the front of Toonami, being like, we couldn't resist. This is a great show. And
It's very sweet. Like I watched it like, oh, what the fuck this is, but it was cute. Like,
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was clearly done from a place of being excited about the movie, which in turn adds that layer of excitement. It's a more gentle equivalent of coming on and being like, fucking hell, Steven Universe, the movie's coming, sweet, we edited this, check it out. It's not quite that.
Sure.
But yeah, in turn makes you more excited.
Yeah, I agree, and it's nice to know that the Toonami guys were like, because it's worth noting here that the people who work on Adult Swim, they do not promote Cartoon Network shows. Full stop. They just don't do it. There's no cross promotion at all there. When Cartoon Network at whatever time at night switches to Adult Swim, I assume 8 o'clock or something, that's it. Like, it doesn't. There's no references to the other, so that it says something about the love there is for this show inside other networks, sister networks and stuff like that. The Adult Swim guys, clearly, who do operate pretty much independently of Cartoon Network, just love Steven Universe, and that's incredible. And the fact they got permission to do this trailer, and then went and put it together themselves is just incredible. And it's a really good to talk generally about it. I think it's a great second trailer. Go on.
I think a thing for me is I watched it and I went, that's a fucking clever trailer, because it feels like it's giving you a crap ton more.
Exactly
but actually, probably for the casual viewer, it is giving you a shitload more. But for the fans that are analysing this, it feels like it's giving you a crap ton more, because essentially it's confirming a load of stuff that people were already theorizing, which is a really clever way of doing it. Like, there's some awesome new shots, but for me, the big thing was I was like, oh, sweet, cool, so we know that going in. That's confirmed now. The 2 years, all that sort of stuff. Beach City becoming like a gem homeworld. Cool. Fine.
Yeah. I said this to someone on the because someone said, oh, it's a really spoilery trailer, everyone should avoid it. And I honestly, my genuine response was, it isn't. It's almost all, bar 2 of these shots, are from scenes we've already seen in the previous trailer. They're all either from just before the shots we've already seen or just after, and some of them are literally shots from those. But yeah, there's very little in this that we haven't yet seen. So should we have a run through it and just see what we?
Yeah, well, can I talk just about a specific thing, because we're probably gonna I don't know if you got it freeze framed or screenshot or something like that, but if we go through it that way, we're not going to point out the key thing for me, which is that it was really weird when the trailer goes, but it do it all with singing, and then they went, because this is, and I was like, oh cool, they're going to be like, not just a movie, but a musical, and then they're like, a movie. I'm like, well, that's odd.
Yeah, okay.
So in the voiceover,
it's worth noting that this trailer is cut in the style of a Toonami trailer, which is like usually done for anime. So it's it's like this week on Dragon Ball Z, Goku will fight Frieza, and like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of like, it's very bombastic, and like that voiceover thing is very much this trailer is very much cut, not like a Steven Universe trailer, but like a Toonami trailer. And I think that it's worth noting that voiceover is very much that.
But it's still the voiceover. It's like, why mention, because I think the singing bit is really funny. Like, it's a really good gag. But like, why then go, it's a movie? Why not go, it's a musical? Like,
I agree. I 100% agree. But it's just kind of like, I guess they're sort of saying like, and it's a movie, just so it's like feature length. I guess they're sort of like just putting it up, but either way, the two things being so close together does come across a bit weird for sure.
Well, it just would have been better if it's like, it's a musical. But anyway, they gave us a great trailer. I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing.
Yeah, so should we? I mean, the way I would do it, I've not got freeze frames as such, but I've got it in front of me. I was just going to sort of like, so we didn't miss anything. Like, in terms of, I don't want anything to. I don't want any shots with key information for to miss them or anything like that. So I'm not gonna go through it like we've done in the past, where it's literally frame by frame, because that will take longer than we really have realistically here. But we'll just sort of talk generally about what some of these shots mean. So the first thing that struck me is that we confirmed that not only have they put a warp pad in that dome on the Crystal Temple, but it's a galaxy warp, because the opening shot is Homeworld. A beam comes off it, then the beam points down at Earth, and then you see it hitting the new the new rebuilt Crystal Temple, and Steven then warps into the warp pad in the dome. Where obviously Connie is awaiting him. So that's clearly him coming back from his big adventure, which is weird because you'd think there'd be fanfare and people waiting and like the gems or something, but unless my earlier theory is right that he's just going back and forth a lot.
Yeah, that's the impression I get, that it's a back and forth thing. This because the town as well, just because that kind of. The galaxy warp pad, that dome, and the town is all part of one thing. This trailer, more than any other, I guess, whilst I knew the town had changed, this trailer made me kind of realise just how much the status quo is going to be different. Do you, if that is correct, do you feel... I feel a slight sense of mourning for not witnessing some of that stuff more, for not witnessing it change, for it really does feel like it's going to be the first 5 seasons, the movie, and then whatever comes next, it's going to feel like 2 distinct arcs and phases. Do you pine a little bit for the stories we won't potentially get to see?
Do you have any examples? Because the more I think about it, like I know there's a bunch of stuff that I was sad we couldn't get after the last after Change of Mind, but you know, as was discovered when we actually analysed that, a lot of those stories were stories that could be deferred slightly. You know, where we could get them later on. I'm looking at it, and to be fair, so he refers to it as Little Homeworld, which I love, like the idea that Beach City has its own Little Italy, or you know, or whatever. Little Homeworld is an adorable name for it. That's very cute. But it seems to be a separate location to the main Beach City town, because in this trailer, later on when there's all destruction happening, we're not seeing gym buildings falling apart. We're seeing the Beach City buildings falling apart. So
that's true.
So that's from what I can tell in terms of layout, it looks like what we've got now is 2 very distinct locations. Beach City proper, that we've known from you know previous, and then in that sort of swath of land in and around the bar where the barn was, I should say. I was going to say in and around the barn be gone. But where it looks like the fields and land surrounding that barn that was sort of were they sort of donated to Stephen in the end from his uncle, I guess. Either way,
yeah, something like that.
Either way, that seems to be where the gem town has sort of been built, and still seems to be being built. There's a distinct shot in this where you know they're where you can see them like carrying like I don't know, materials to build stuff, and obviously clearly in this movie we see them putting the warp pad in place. So yeah, which was also in the first trailer, obviously, but like it's you know it's new. It seems to me like yes, a lot has changed, but a lot of those changes aren't finished, which means we can still tell stories about the change. You know, we can still tell stories about...
That's fair.
I feel like we can still tell stories about the people of Beach City having to live in a world where the gems live a town over. You know, will probably cause some weirdness and some good comedy. And I feel like because they've not completed building everything, we're going to get to the satisfaction of seeing some of this stuff come together. Like, obviously, we're going to get to see Amethyst and Steven plant the warp pad in the new town, and there's still cranes in the background you can see, and obviously we can see the snowflake obsidian carrying it. They're just like pillars. I don't know what are they. What do you go girders? They're just like girders. And there's people like climbing up ladders. So it's still very much under construction, which I think is so I think I don't know. What were you thinking of specifically when you were talking about that?
I don't know the decisions for it to be made, but you know, if I pitch anything, it's just going to sound like council meetings in the Star Wars prequels. So I guess things like bismuth and lapis and jasper. Jasper's a big one, and I know we can revisit it and stuff, but there's that. There might, depending on how they do it, be a sense of, would you guys not have had this discussion?
Sure.
But I trust the creators though. So you making the point that they are still fundamentally constructing this town is a fair and a good point.
It's interesting. So you're coming back to character stuff, which were my concerns after Change Your Mind, and you talked me out of those concerns, and now you're having those concerns. There's an irony to that. I think you're probably right.
People's opinions develop and change, Dan.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. There is a weird, you know what, and this is completely off topic, but Dan Harmon was talking about this on a podcast recently. He was like, it's really weird that the way we talk about. Like, we want everyone to change their mind because we're constantly, debating with people about stuff. And what would be the purpose of debating something with somebody if you weren't intending on, like, trying to convince them otherwise, right? Like, is that not the goal of a debate? Yet, we don't respect people that change their minds. We, like, if you said something, if you had a strong opinion and then you went back on it, we'd be like, oh. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if someone reviews a movie and then comes back and gives a different opinion at a later time, people would that seems like, oh, I don't know if I value your opinion anymore. You're a bit of a flip flopper. Like there's a you'll change on a dime. Like I don't know. I find that really odd. That's the perspective.
That's part of the danger of things being set in stone. Like we had that discussion, but me talking now, it's just me giving my opinions off the cuff, to you, and I can't remember that. I'm not saying I didn't say it. I'm not saying it isn't valid to be like, well done, you've changed your mind here. But I just find it interesting that we're obviously both in this weird. We're in this weird transition stage in the show, and I think we've both reacted to it the same way, but at different times. And I think I don't think that's invalid. And in fact, I think that's very indicative of what's actually happening, which is we both have concerns because we're going, I feel like we've missed out on something, but we're both then going, oh, but I trust these creators, I trust this creative team. So you sort of my override, and it's such a balancing act that sometimes it tips one way and sometimes it tips others, and they've tipped in at different times for us. That's all it is. It's also indicative of this format. It might be, and I couldn't tell you without listening to it and trying to remember, but it could be that thing of sometimes you give the opposite opinion just to give the opposite opinion and make the discussion better because it is a podcast, and it might be that if you pause and think about it, maybe that isn't your opinion or you've changed your mind or whatever, but it could be that could be the case as well. I think
it happened to me recently because I sort of I didn't love the new season of Game of Thrones, but I thought some of the criticisms were unfair. And I defended a few of the choices the show made towards the end, and then over time it's settled in with me more. I've thought about it. I've analysed it a bit more, and I'm starting to, and I have changed my mind a bit. I think the final season of Game of Thrones is way more deeply flawed than even I knew at the time, and defended is a strong word, but I did say these things that are a huge problem for other people weren't bothering me as much, and it's really interesting that I think now thinking back on it, a bit of hindsight, my mind has changed on that, so I think these things do evolve, and I think that's fine. I don't think that's a problem. I don't really know why I don't know why people view it that way. It's strange to me that people sort of
because everything's recorded and people can do it to prove their point. It's the James Gunn thing. If he tweeted something 6 years ago, can we not change? Can we not grow? Can those things not be there to point out that growth instead of hanging someone up to dry because of an opinion that may have changed in the 6 years in between? We all do dumb shit, guys. Like some people tweet horrendous jokes, and some people debate the kids show on a podcast and then differ their opinion. I feel like it's been a bizarre tangent. We should take us firmly back to the trailer.
Yeah, okay. So
I think that last 5 minutes was only interesting for you and I.
Yeah. Looking at the trailer, looking at the shot where he first meets Connie, I'll tell you something. I have changed my mind on. My original theory, I think, was that we weren't going to see a lot of Connie in this movie. That Connie was going to be there at the beginning and then have to go off somewhere and not come back. And I think that is correct for the most part. but I do think she's coming back in the final act. There's a very clear shot here with her on Lion coming back through a portal, which I think is very much in the end stages of the movie. And she's
looked awesome as well, by the way.
What's that, sorry?
And it looked awesome as well. That shot's brilliant.
The shot's great, but it's actually, would you believe it? I'm sure you won't believe it, Chris, because it's such a shock for this show to reference anything else. It's a reference to Akira.
Oh, cool.
It's probably, I'd like to hear the people's opinion on this, probably the most referenced shot of all time in animation. Like, that shot in Akira where the bike slides on that road, that piece of road, I have seen that so many times now in different ways, from different shows, and here is no different. It's like clear as day that it's mimicking that. It is beautifully done though. So I think she comes back in the final act to help. I noticed she's wearing what looks like maybe a space suit. That was my first thought. So I'm wondering if where she was going at the beginning was to some sort of like space camp to train to be like an astronaut or to like I don't know.
That'd be cool.
I don't know. I'm theorizing because
why not?
Well, otherwise I don't know what that outfit is.
I don't think it's like gem. It might be, but I'd be surprised if it was gem related. I think the space thing is a cool theory. I still love the combination of her and Lion. I think it's awesome, and the idea that we might be getting more of that is very exciting.
Yeah, I think particularly it's handy because you just sort of say she's gone to space camp, she's not near. What happens when you need Connie? You yell, Lion, go get Connie. And Lion jumps through a portal, comes back, Connie on his back. Like that's it's not just a cool visual and a really cool team. It's also like there's also a lot of interesting stuff. There's also just a very convenient plot idea. You just can stick them together that way. Shall we talk about the Pearl of it all? A lot of people have been intrigued by Pearl's line when the villain, whose name should I repeat now? Is that still technically a spoiler because it leaked? We preempt.
Yes, spoiler warning. Dan's going to name the character in 3, 2, 1.
Spinel. When Pearl is speaking with her, she says like it can't be, and she says, "Oh, it can be," or something like that, and it is, or it is and it can be, or something like that. And so there's been multiple theories about this. The primary one is that Pearl knows this gem. I am not convinced that she directly knows her. I think it could be interpreted that way, and that is certainly an option, but I do not think it is the definitive be-all, end-all explanation for why that sentence is uttered. It could be that she thought all of those giant injectors were destroyed, so she sees one and is like, no, it can't be. Like, as in those were destroyed. Or it could be that she thought all of the kind of gem that gem is were destroyed.
Yeah, I think it's potentially the gem thing, knowing that gem as a type, as opposed to the specific gem. I don't know though, because it's funny. I watched the trailer 3 times, and one of those times was with Jess, and Jess said, there's big spoilers here if you're ever going to catch up on the show and watch it. And she's like, I'm not going to watch it. And I'm like, all right. Fighting a losing battle there. And then I said something. I said, oh yeah, it's weird because this is all new sort of stuff. Like everything we're seeing is new. And she went, oh, what, even the villain? And I said, yeah, it's a new villain. And she went, but that woman seemed to know her. And so, like, from an outside, non-analysing point of view, the read was she knows her.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that's outside of outside of like what's. I don't think that's outside of possibility in terms of an explanation for that at all. I think that's as valid. But the people are talking about that like that's established now. Like, oh, Pearl knows her. How? And I'm like, not necessarily. There are a couple of reasons Pearl might say it can't be. Do you know what I mean? Like, one might very well be that she's aware of that kind of gem, but thought they were all gone or something. I mean, then she'd be surprised to see one, surely. I'm like, fine, like, but let's not. I don't know. Let's not assume anything because the amount of speculation happening on that is crazy.
Really, has that caused a lot of discussion then?
That's what I mean. Of what I've seen, and admittedly, anecdotal evidence. This is just what I'm coming across. But yeah, I've seen a fair bit of it. Moving on, because we could talk about that all day. Just a little detail I noticed. First of all, Lion has a little bed inside the dome. It's a big, it looks like cat bed. It's got lion written on it in like ornate writing and a little like paw print as the dotted eye on the lion. I think that's beautiful. And also in there, if you look around, there's a lot of plants, but they're mostly roses and hibiscus. And the hibiscus flower has been often correlated with scenes regarding pink diamond. So the two flowers that represent Stephen's two other major forms are present. I think that was kind of nice.
Yeah, that's cool. It was a nice touch.
Yeah, little detail that's nice. Obviously, you can see Bismuth's forge again. There's a really nice shot of them on the beach. Lion climbing out of the van and Pearl holding a bass guitar and laughing with Greg and Stephen, and they've all got like there's a drink next to Greg on the amp and stuff, and like they just look like they're sat around having fun playing music. And I just like the idea that Pearl and Greg have been like jamming together. I think that's a really nice idea.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that is a nice idea.
That's one of the two only shots I am aware of that are actually completely from new scenes that we didn't know exist.
Yeah, but there is also, before the trailer itself starts, there's the shot of we knew this scene existed, but there's a really cool more shots of the Steve and Greg stuff, which to me is still pointing to fusion theory.
But can we talk about how you've inceptioned me on this?
What do you mean?
You've totally inceptioned me. I went back the other day for something else. I can't remember what it was, and I listened to the episode where we first talked about the first trailer. And we were talking about Comic-Con and Rebecca's comment about how, will there be a new fusion? Oh, we'll answer that question in a definitive way or something like that. In a huge way or something like that. And I went, I think that's Stephen and Greg. And you went, oh yeah, it could be that. Like as if it had never occurred to you. And then a few minutes later, you're like, when we talk about that again, I'm going to pretend we both had that. You say something like that, like you're gonna pretend it's both of our theory. And then in the next episode, We're both going, we thought, we think. And I'm like, wait a minute. You've actually just inceptioned me out of my own theory.
Not in any way deliberately, but sorry. I didn't know I did that.
I was like amazed when I heard it back. So I want credit. I haven't looked at the sheet recently, but I want credit for if that
I'd like to think if I had that much cunning to be able to that cleverly, like, convince you and do the psychology needed to deliberately do that, I'd be doing something more with my life.
You did it as a joke in that one, and we both laughed at that premise.
Yeah,
but by the next week, it was we came up with that theory, and I'm like, wait a minute.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't. Dan Doolan, copyright Dan Doolan.
Don't overcompensate now, because if I'm wrong,
I mean, I think we both know I'm now going to overcompensate. So no, I think that's.
I don't want the flag planting. We've learned that if I flag plant, it doesn't come through. The theory I had, the most logical explanation to what fusion was going to happen, was Greg and Stephen. But please don't quote me on that. Every time I make a definitive prediction and put my flag in it, don't.
No, I'm not. I mean, decide what you want, Dan. You either want the credit or you can't have both.
I want to be able to say that it was my idea, not our idea. But I also don't want to. Yeah. But I also don't want to say that I definitely am standing as 100%. That's what's going to happen.
But I'm just giving you the trademark. So as per the theory by Dan Doolan, #trademark. Dan. And we don't know. Is it possible he read it somewhere on the Discord or online and claimed it as his own? We don't know. Who am I to say? All I know is that on this podcast, this was Dan Doolan's theory. But no, I think that clip is... I just don't know why, in what seems to be a battle scenario, I don't know why you'd... Obviously, there's going to be a lot of cutting to song. But, surely that only leads that way.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing about it that I'm a little bit unsure of is that in that shot, it's the normal night sky behind them, not the pink night sky. That is my only hint of doubt. I'll put it on screen for those wondering right now if you want to see what the shot I'm referring to. There's two shots actually though in that little thing. The other one is Stephen Amethyst doing a little fist bump, the handshake thing that goes into a hug, and they're clearly stood on top of the warp pad that's being dragged to little homeworld. So there's two little shots from that little, from the robot in the chair.
I think that's a cool looking shot. I suspect it's from early in the movie.
I would agree.
Another big reveal, another big scene reveal is the Off Colors appearance, which I thought looked really cool, and I'm pleased they're in it.
Yeah, they're in it with what I noticed most out of that shot was what Lars was wearing, because he seems to be wearing a new outfit with an apron. And I don't think this is my theory. I think I've read someone suggest this, but it could be that he's maybe opened his own bakery or something, because he is bringing them an ube roll. They're all sat around a table, and he's bringing them one of those.
I hadn't caught that.
Yeah, so it's the food that he cooked for that episode. You know when he was cooking for the potluck, and then he got cold feet and dumped it in the bin.
Yeah,
and then got ambushed by that little shit.
Yeah. He's gone back to finish the job.
So he's made another ube roll. So I don't know. I don't know if he's just taken the day off being the captain and he's made an ube roll, or if he does have his own little business in Beach City now. But can I ask a question? Does anybody in Beach City eat at home, or is it because there's so many food places and nothing else? I don't remember ever seeing anybody going to a convenience store to buy food for their homes. It just seems to be a long line of restaurants.
It's a very touristy town thing to do, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it is. But yeah, no, I think that's nice.
Know? Just quick question for you. Do you, before we move on from that point, do you know roughly when the intention is to put this up? Are we putting it up a bit earlier, or is it like to go up on the Tuesday?
What do you mean? This podcast we're doing right now?
Yeah.
This is going to go up almost immediately.
Okay, cool. So, remind me. So I just want to make clear. Lars being a baker, theory by Dan Doolan and Dan Doolan alone, noted on Monday, the 28th, I believe it is, of August. Cool.
26th, I think.
26th. I think it's the 27th, actually. I don't know.
I think it's the 26th. It's the 26th.
I think one of us needs to look now.
I've just checked. It's 26th.
That's the 26th. Okay, cool. Theory by Dan Doolan alone. 26th of August.
I can't imagine I'm the only one to have come up with that, and I'm certainly not the only one to have come up with. In the podcast, it doesn't even matter. You're just dragging me into this, and I hate you for it. There's a couple of cool shots of the injector that we haven't seen previously. There's a shot of it definitively pumping the pink liquid into the ground, which we hadn't seen previously.
Yeah, that made that. Whilst that's one of those things where, when talking about it, we said the word injector, but my mind didn't quite picture it as quite the huge weapon that it is. So that was quite cool to get the context of that. I think I like that.
Yeah, I think so too. Stephen riding lion at one point. Not sure. It seems to be towards the end of the movie. It kind of makes me feel a little bit like at one point Stephen goes somewhere, like Homeworld or something, because the shot is him coming in on Lion from outside of the city, like over the water. It starts with him coming in from the ocean. Maybe he's been to Mask Island for something. I don't know. But what's very important to note here, I thought, is the positioning of the injector. So this is Stephen coming in out of nowhere, having, it seems, been away for at least a small period of time, because he's coming in from the ocean, not from within the city or the temple. And the injector is up on the hill. Now, we know later in the movie, he pulls it out from there, and it replants more towards the town. We know that because we've seen all those shots. We've seen the shot of him pulling it up. We've seen the shot of it in the town, not in the hill. And in the shot of him on top facing the villain, you can see in the background the hole from when it was on the hill. Mm-hmm. So I've got a theory. Don't you dare timestamp this shit. But my sequence of events theory is that Stephen goes away for some reason. He comes back. He goes to physically using his strength pull the injector out, And that's what makes him exhausted and drains him, because he has to use his gem powers to get the strength together to lift the injector out. And it doesn't even help because it just plonks back in anyway, but elsewhere. And that's why he's exhausted later in the movie.
5:48, 26th of August, 2019. Dan Doolan and Dan Doolan.
How did you turn this on me? How I had all the power because you'd inceptioned me, and now you have all the power because you've made me seem like the world's biggest, most picky arsehole.
And that, I will admit, was deliberate. The inception thing was pure fluke, but this, I'm having a ball. I think that makes sense, because it does also. I don't know, in terms of him going somewhere and coming back. There's not really a lot of suggestion that the diamonds are in this fight. So, did he go try and find them? Couldn't? Are they not? Are they the cavalry that comes in later?
Yeah.
We see a lot of the crystal gems fighting, and we see a lot of the kind of, this sounds really horrible, but the B team crystal gems and Steven fighting. There's a lot of shots.
I want to talk about that in a second as well. I've got
and then that all looks awesome. So yeah, do we? I don't know. You'd like to think the diamonds are in it.
He can't be coming from Homeworld there though, because he's coming back from the ocean on Lion, not the warp pad. It's a galaxy warp, in the built into the temple. Unless it's just too close to where the chaos is happening and he's had to make a retreat on Lion, and Lion is used. But haven't we established before that the Lion has a limit on his teleportation powers?
Don't know.
I think, didn't he go to the moon once and it really exhausted him? So he couldn't get all the way to Homeworld without dying or whatever.
I don't know.
What
are you thinking of B team then? And
I think our villain captures the crystal gems, renders them.
Ooh.
I don't know if it means poofing.
Yeah,
but I think there's a reason he has to go get the B team.
I hope it doesn't mean poofing, because it would really disappoint me to have new costumes for a movie.
What do you mean?
Well, if they get unpoofed, there'll probably be a costume change, and I don't want a costume change.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's a really good point. They all just got nice new costumes. Yeah. Well, maybe it's just a matter of they're captured. But either way, I don't think they're available to Steven for a chunk of the movie. I think there's a reason that might even very well. Oh my god! I've just noticed. Sorry, I'm flicking through it. I can see the shot where it replants closer to the town. There's a shot. Okay. I'll put it on screen. But I'm sorry, I've literally just got it on loop in front of me as we're talking. I don't know why. There's a shot, I've paused it, and I'll put it on the screen for listeners, where you can see it injecting the liquid more deliberately into the ground. And that seems to be the second attempt, because in the background you can see the original hole further up on the hill. So there you go.
Right, okay, that Steven is potentially, in this trailer, pulling it out of.
Yes. So he pulled...
I think...
So, yeah.
I think crystal gems get captured halfway through, which, by the way, 5:50, August 26th, Dan Doolan and Dan Doolan alone, is a really good theory. And I think it's a really good... That adds quite a nice dynamic for the film, as long as we get a shot of them all fighting at one point. I think it is. Then again, this whole thing wouldn't work just as a. I think I'm weaning from my insistence that this works as a movie and a movie alone. With stuff like this, because I mean, it's just, as I'm finding, it can be really hard to make something accessible. So actually, the new challenge of him not having them is quite an exciting one. And who knows? Maybe he hasn't got the diamonds either. Maybe they're off limits. They've been captured, whatever it may be.
And that whole, we'll save the day, that's who we are song, that's clearly him having gotten the, he's gone to, little homeworld or whatever to gather the crystal temps.
Love the idea. Is that what they're called in the fan community? The crystal temps.
Well, when it was Connie, Lapis, and Peridot, they were the crystal temps, weren't they? Because they guarded Beach City while Steven and the gems were off and about.
Well, weren't they called the new crystal gems?
I think I think the episode is called The New Crystal Gems, but I think at one point in the episode they're referred to as the Crystal Temps.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, I think that says a really interesting thing that I can't see us having time to explore in the movie. Of if he's gone there to get them, like Peridot and Bismuth, there's absolutely logic and reasoning to them being there. It'd be fascinating to see what Lapis looks like in this new world.
Yes.
Last time we saw Lapis, she was just returning to the battlefield, and I don't want to undo that at all. I've said before, I don't want to retread that ground. But how integrated Lapis is will be an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm wondering if she's just going to be present, and we're not actually going to explore what's going on with her until the show comes back.
Yeah, I can't see how we'll have time to explore it. So.
And it does make me think that maybe this is all, by the way, further, like that Little Homeworld is further away from Beach City than we're imagining in our heads, because obviously, if he does end up then visiting Little Homeworld to get the Crystal Temps in, that's cool. But the shot where he goes to collect them on the warp pad, maybe that's where he's coming back from in that shot where he's on Lion. I don't know, but they're on the warp pad, and it's like, we'll save the day. That's who we are. Like, that's bright light, sunlight. Not the overcast, green, shadowy shots we're getting in all of the Beach City stuff. So I don't know if maybe the bad weather has been brought on by this injector's presence, which actually kind of makes sense, because obviously when it first arrives, there's immediately clouds forming around it. So
yeah, and the flowers immediately start to wilt and stuff.
So yeah, I guess so. What did you think of that little snippet of song? I got really excited when I heard that, because I was just like, okay, that song sounds awesome. What a catchy, like that 3 seconds of song is catchy enough for me to have already remembered what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, and also you get just seeing that gang together fills me with joy.
There's a shot that seems to be from when they then come in to the situation with the injector already in place, where it's Peridot, Bismuth, and Lapis looking very concerned as she's got her iPad. And then there's another shot that seems to be from like the other side of that same thing, where it's Peridot's in the foreground, the injector's in the background, and you can see Peridot's little robots all over the injector, the little rovenoid things, or whatever she calls them. They're all climbing over the injector, so maybe that's where she's getting her data from. Excuse me, about what kind of injector it is and what it's doing. Because otherwise, that must be where she's getting information about what it's up to.
I was quite excited to see Peridot used in that way again. I feel like it's been a little while since we've had that, and thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And then the last thing I think that I wanted to mention, where has it gone? Huh. Those are the little details I noticed. What was the last one? There was one more. This is the problem when you don't actually make a plan with this. Oh yeah, this is a tiny one, but in the shot of there's a couple of shots in this one of the townies escaping,
which I liked.
Yeah, there's one that if you freeze frame it, you can see Petey, and he seems to be a bit taller. So all the adult ones and the cool kids seem to have not changed a lot in the time, because 2 years obviously doesn't have as much an impact on your how you visually look as it does when you're younger, and Petey seems to have sprouted. He's not as tall as the Fryman yet, but he's getting there. And in the shot, you can't see him from the front properly, but you see him. It's quite an amusing shot actually, because the Fryman actually just picks him up and like starts running with him under his arm, which is quite amusing. But yeah, he seems to be older.
That's a really nice example of the attention to detail that's being placed here. I feel like obviously, goodness knows how we're going to end up reviewing this stuff, but I almost feel like an episode of instant thoughts and analysis, and then an episode where we kind of do what we did a bit with Change Your Mind, where we go, right, this is what people have discovered in hindsight, this is what this scene was in this scene that we didn't pick up on, and I think there'll be loads of that in this.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's going to be tons of stuff. There's so much stuff. Like every. Oh, actually, can we talk a little bit about Steven seemingly using his powers to grow a flower?
Oh, I don't remember that.
There's a shot in this where a flower just erupts out of the ground, and then it's the flower Steven is holding in the I hope this, these things. No, I hope this never changes. Whatever. I'd like the status quo of this narrative to stay like this forever. During that line, he's holding the flower, but it looks like this to me the same flower that you see in this sort of erupt with like gem magic. What looks to be gem magic, it like sort of comes out of the ground glowing. So I think if we're opening the movie, because it's from the opening of the movie, establishing that Stephen has these powers to make flowers grow, that's a really quick and easy way to explain how we put things right.
Yeah.
If she's like damaging life, maybe Stephen can bring it back. Like if she's the grass is dying, the flowers are dying. Maybe at the end, maybe it just ends with Stephen like a big burst of light and everything just starts growing again.
Yeah, that's cool. Because also I feel like we did 5 seasons of Stephen learning, just seeing him not learning but growing into his powers and the powers evolving and growing, I think would be really cool. So I do really like the notion that it's an evolution of Stephen's powers.
Yeah, especially if it's an intentional one where, like, because it seems, I mean, so in the shot of the flower growing, you can't really see the source of what's causing it to grow. But if I was a betting man, and I'm not planting a flag, but if I was a betting man, I think they're all lying in the field, and he just reaches out, it grows, and then he sort of picks it and holds it and sniffs it. Like, I think he literally intentionally creates it, which I like the idea as well that he's developed his powers while we've been off screen, because that means he might be able to do some things that surprise us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
And also we've also put to bed people who are complaining about the first trailer saying, why is Stephen climbing the injector when he can float? It looks like from this trailer he does float halfway, but then he runs out of steam, energy, whatever from whatever drained him, because again it's when he's got the baggy eyes and the torn clothes, and then he has to climb manually the rest of the way because he's just not got enough oomph to float his way up. So there you go. That solves that mystery, because people thought that was kind of not a plot hole, but like a come on Stephen, you idiot, why don't you float your way to the top of it? Which
I get that, and I understand that comment.
I think we've covered it. All, Chris.
Cool.
Every frame.
There we go. I'm very pumped, Dan.
Oh, I cannot express how excited I am. And for those who are wondering, yes, I'm aware the track listing has leaked. I've not read it. I've decided that would be too much. I made a call that I know all the titles for all the songs are out there. I have not read them. I also know there was some other leak this week, something to do with Apple TV. I was warned about it. And therefore was able to avoid it. I can't remember where I got warned about it, like on the subreddit somewhere or a forum somewhere.
What was the leak? Did Apple TV put it up early or something?
No, Apple TV put up. Well, I don't know. They put up information about it. The movie is available for pre-order, and there was something in the information they put up. I don't know if it was in the. My assumption is it's in the synopsis. I think they've probably said something in the synopsis that gives something away. If I was guessing. So yeah, I don't know, and I've avoided. So I'm going to continue to avoid. I feel like that felt like a bit much for me.
Yeah, that's fair. We're not sure when, maybe the Friday, maybe the Saturday, but at some point before the actual movie airs, we're going to put up my pitch, because it would be madness the day after the movie aired to put up a pitch for a completely different type of movie. So you will still see that in the next week or so before the actual movie. Yeah. Sometime
over the weekend at the latest, I think. Prior to the movie,
and then obviously it'll be the movie review as soon as we physically can.
100%. The minute we can do it and get it up, we will. We're not going to give you a date or a time for that. We're just going to basically just see when we're available to record immediately, edit as quick as I can, and get it up as quick as I can. That's the plan for the next couple of episodes. One other quick thing, because I keep being told we need to do it and we just don't. If you like our content, give us a like. That helps. Like the video. Just press the button, takes 2 seconds. Also, write a comment, that helps too. If you don't have anything to say, just write "this is a comment." I honestly don't care. Like, just put a comment, it helps us. It's the little ways you can help us without having to give us money. And incidentally, actually, if you're interested in that, we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. Feel free to donate a little bit of cash to cover our costs. That helps too. I'm supposed to talk about that more often than I do.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do any of that, and the only thing you kind of take from this and remember is that Dan and Dan alone created the Greg Stephen fusion theory,
Incorrect.
then that's also really important.
Incorrect. My assumption is other people had that idea beforehand, but we recorded that very close to the Comic Con panel, I believe the day after it aired, and listening to it, it does sound like I sort of like had the thought watching the trailer and then dismissed it and then remembered it in the podcast, but I'm not dismissing the idea that obviously other people will have had the thought, I'm sure, well before me.
Yeah,
so shush.
As long as it's clear, I didn't. But in my defense, it's harder when you're not able to read the Wikipedia. So
That's a joke I absolutely cannot make. I feel like that would be too mean. So thanks very much for listening. Again, this is a comment. Throw that down below. Or tell us your own thoughts on the movie trailer, or tell us how disappointed you are that you've not had Chris's pitch this week.
It's coming, and it's
coming.
bad.
Oh, I'm sure it's gonna be great.
I got some casting.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
I got one piece of casting that makes me slightly gutted. I'm never going to see it.
That makes me happy. I'm very excited. So we'll come to that. If you're interested in what that is, come back to us next week. We've already bleeped out some casting suggestions Chris had. I think some of which he's changed now. So I didn't even need to bleep them.
One's the same. Greg's the same, but Garnet is
no longer who you
don't
say.
worry
We'll
about
talk about it
bleeping
on the
this.
one. We teased it, so we should continue to tease it. We'll talk about the various options you went through before you landed on what you landed on. Cool. So yeah, thanks very much for listening, everyone. Stick a comment down below. Like us on iTunes, or review us on iTunes or Google Play or whatever as well. That also helps. Thanks very much. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
We'll see you later in the week for Chris's movie pitch thing.
Yeah.
It's answered loudly.
That's exciting.
We're getting a new fusion. Speculation now, Chris. I honestly, part of me has wondered if it could be Stephen and Greg.
Oh, blimey. Well, they do look very in sync in that clip when they're singing. And he's got the guitar and stuff.
That's what I thought. That was my first. Yeah. That was my first immediate thought.
I reckon so.
It could be it.
Write down, Cram.
Yeah.
Credit that one to both of us.
1 week later.
Yeah, we'd already speculated that prior to this. So when you add this into the mix, it does really. It's definitely pushing it that way.